then you're in the right place. This is the Rutherford Magazine Show with host Mike Sparks. He and guest are here to talk local politics, history, faith, and freedom.
Got a show tonight, big show. Going to talk about some controversial stuff. Got I hope I'm saying his name right. It's Josh Rosales. Is that right?
That's it.
Am I getting good at my
You
Latino
perfect
speech?
Perfect.
Okay. I've got Jeremy Smithson, our trusty intern. I got Jackson Smith, our producer. Jackson, how you doing? Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing great. Mike, how you doing?
Good. And I've got a little upcoming rock star, Hannah Faulkner. Hannah, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. How old are you?
I just turned 16.
Oh,
last
happy
week.
birthday.
Thank you.
Really?
Thank you.
You don't look a bit over 15, you know? I just held the door open for you. You okay with a man holding the door for you?
Absolutely.
You're not offended?
No, not at all.
Good. But before we get into that, our Sunday school lesson this morning was about mentorships and you know, and one of the areas I often talk about is the fatherless, growing fatherless rate that we happen to see in our community. And I think that's one of the reasons we have such problems, whether it's violence today and the drug problem, mental health, and just some of the craziness that's going on today. One thing I've done is look at some of these school shooters, these mass shooters, and the vast majority of these young people come from fatherless homes, you know. But I've got Jackson going to play a song. I'm going to call it probably one of the saddest songs that I've heard when it comes to the fatherless. So a lot of folks my generation, I'm 56, a lot of these folks have heard this song. Hannah, you've probably never heard this. Jeremy, you've probably never heard it. Jackson, you've probably never heard it.
You hold 35 really good, though, Mike.
Do I really?
Yeah.
I've heard this before, Mike.
I would say something, but it's very politically incorrect. I can't say it on radio. But let's hear this song. This song always reminded me of my late father. He passed about 16 years ago.
I'm gonna be like him, yeah. You know I'm gonna be like him. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, the little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. You know we'll have a good time then. Well, he came from college just the other day. So much like a man, I just had to say, son, I'm proud of you. Can you sit for a while? He shook his head and he said with a smile, what I'd really like, Dad, is to borrow the car keys. See you later, can I have them, please? And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, son, I don't know when, but we'll get together then. Dad, you know we'll have a good time then. I've long since retired, my son's moved away. I called him up just the other day. I said I'd like to see you if you don't mind. He said I'd love to, Dad, if I can find the time. You see, my new job's a hassle and the kids are the flu, but it's sure nice talking to you, Dad. It's been sure nice talking to you. And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. son, I don't know when, but we'll get together then, Dad. We're gonna have a good time there.
Yeah, that's a tear jerker right there. So have y'all ever heard that song?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Have you really? Yeah. The Josh, did you talk to your dad today?
No,
You didn't.
no, we don't have a good relationship.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have a really good relationship.
Why's that?
You know, it just all stemmed from divorce and from his remarriage, and you know, it's not the remarriage. I don't think was the thing. It's just I think when you get divorced and you remarry, I think there's a fine balance of keeping your biological
Yeah.
kids still, and yet your new spouse
Yeah.
continues to recognize that when she marries or he marries that person, that they marry the family.
Yeah.
And I think with my dad's marriage, it was he got remarried and then he adopted, not legally, but just adopted her family and spent so much time there that we just kind of just grew apart. And you know, in the beginning it was incredible. Like I grew up in Germany. My dad was in the military. We'd go
I'll fix
fishing.
that if your dad's military.
Yeah, we go fishing. We play basketball. We did everything together. And even when I was started going into Bible college, like lived with him, and we had a good relationship. And it was just not that we're upset with each other. It's just we don't talk, and when we do talk, it's maybe couple minutes, and it's like, hey, how's it going? Going good. What you up to? Not much. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Okay, see ya.
Yeah.
But that's why I think I'm so passionate now, is just because I don't have that mentor, or I don't have that one maybe mentor in my life, but I'm very much cognizant of hanging around with those that are of the same mentality, and those that are maybe in circles that I attach to, because I refuse to slide back. Like I want to be with people that are better than me, and that's why marrying Francis, I was like, I'm not, if I'm gonna get married, I'm gonna get married to somebody that can challenge me, that's better than me, that probably makes more money than me, that like everything's smarter than me, and it's just a balance, and it just works out. But I mean, God has it all in control. You never know what the future holds.
Oh, you're right. There ain't no doubt. That song's kind of got a lot of truth to it. My dad was World War II, and very difficult, man. I was told by a councilman in Smyrna that he was the meanest man in Smyrna, but he was just military. I had a tough relationship. I mean, he pulled a gun on me. I tried to see him years ago. I don't think he had the gun. I think he was just being threatened. He was just very bitter, very bitter. And I prayed about it, and it was really tough, because here I am, elected official, trying to do things in the community, help other people. I can't even help my own dad. That's where it was really difficult, you know, because sometimes, you can help strangers better than you can your own family sometimes, to reach those people. But I tell you where the Lord healed it. I literally had a dream one night. In the dream, he died, and I didn't get to have closure. And there's probably people listening that can relate to this. And I woke up, and man, I was just like sobbing. And I've never had that happen. Never had a dream, and I just woke up sobbing from a dream. So I walked out of the room about 2 a.m, and my wife was like, "What's going on?" And I said, "I just dreamt about my dad, and he died." And I just said, "Lord, I'm asking you for a miracle," because it would be a miracle. The Lord asked it for a miracle. He was married 5 different times, and very difficult guy. And but he's seen a lot of combat and stuff in World War II. And 5 days later, got a phone call. He had had a stroke, and I was afraid that he'd be laying in the bathroom or at home, and nobody could get to him. And that's what happened. His friend found him, and he I'm thinking he had a heart attack or stroke. And I told my wife to call the ambulance. And I was with my kids. I had taken 2 of my boys and Hal Laughlin's son, Matt, to the lake. And I had a little pontoon boat, and I thought, man, do I go to the hospital, or do I spend time with my kids? It's that balance you're talking about. And I thought, well, I'll go spend time with my kids for like 30 minutes on the lake, and then hurry up and get the boat back on, get to the hospital. So I literally pulled the boat to the hospital, and didn't really speak to him for a little bit. And the next day I just said a prayer with him. I said, "Dad, forgive me of any hurts I've caused you, and I forgive you of any hurts you've caused me." And forgiveness is a big part of society. We never talk about it, but it really is. And the doctor acted like he was going to go to the nursing home, but he always said, because he had some kidney trouble years ago, he said, I'm never going to go on dialysis. And he was a man of his word. If he told you he was going to do something, he was going to do it. And I was on the way to the auto auction. I had a car business at the time, and my friend Scott Butler, wanted to he wanted me to take and go get him a truck at the auto auction. So we're at the big Nashville auto auction. And I remember I was in about the 8th lane of the auto auction. I got a phone call from the hospital. They said, man, your dad's went into a coma. He's not going to make it. So I was like, okay. I went to the hospital. And here's where God lined this up, man. This is so cool. Because the Lord will line it. If you ask him, you got to ask him, okay? And Scott's a pretty quiet guy. Anybody that knows Scott Butler knows he's real quiet. And Scott, we're at the hospital. He's in a coma. My sister, who's an air traffic controller, she couldn't catch a flight from Tampa to come up here, in time. Scott just comes over to me. He goes, hey, man, I'll fly down there and pick up your sister and bring her and her son and husband up here. Scott owns an airplane. Scott flew down to Tampa, picked her up, brought her to the Smyrna airport, and I picked him up. And my dad had already passed, but thank you to the Stonecrest Medical Center, Luke Caputo, and them. They let him lay there so my sister could see him. But it was like the Lord lined it all up for me. And what was ironic is when Scott's dad died, he texted me, hey, man, my dad passed, and so we're going to open up on the funeral if you want to say something. So I spoke about that. But forgiveness is a big part of society, and we never, where do you learn forgiveness? I mean, there's no class that teaches forgiveness. There's no, philosophy or, economics class talking about forgiveness or philosophy or anything. But
I think you learn it just by living.
Well, I think the Christian faith is I think you look at Christ, where his walk and his example. And one thing he said that I liked that Christ said, he said, or it was Gandhi that said, and I couldn't be taking this out of context. He said, I would have become a Christian if I would have become a Christian if it wasn't for those Christians. But I like you, Jesus.
Yeah.
But it was the Christians that, I guess, because he was, look at the hardship they went through. Did you get to wish your dad happy Father's Day?
Absolutely.
Did you really?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. You did, Jeremy?
Absolutely. We actually floated the idea of trying to go play golf somewhere, but a lot of these courses around Middle Tennessee are either they've lost their greens or they're booked from here to next year.
Yeah.
Mike, I do have to say that in regards to father, before Frances, her father passed 3 years ago, he was like a mentor to me. And I remember before he passed, we would go to eat breakfast together, or we'd go eat lunch together. And, he's a pastor, and that's probably, that moment is very sacred to me because her father was an incredible man, full of wisdom. And
what was his name?
Francisco Rivera.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Francisco
That's
Rivera.
a cool name.
Amazing man. Guy could fix a car, did body work, you name it, he could do it.
Yes.
But he was we just go out and hang out and just talk.
Yeah.
And full of wisdom.
Well, I think when I'm sure there's studies out there. I haven't went and researched it, but a lot of what we're seeing today with the rise of this homosexual agenda, let's just be straight up about it. I've been calling this Humility Month instead of Pride Month. My mom always said pride comes before a fall. I think we're in prophetic times, just to be honest.
Absolutely.
I know these are issues that you as a young lady are passionate about. Are you willing to share on the radio what you were just telling me out in the foyer, what just happened to you earlier?
So my siblings wanted to go swim at Patterson Park, just 5 minutes away. And they go in, they swim for like 30 minutes. I'm just waiting out in there in the car, working on some things. They come out and they're like, Hannah, there is a man, we think he's a man, in the women's locker room. So I walk in, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like what I'm fighting against, this is what I'm fighting to stop. And so I walk in there, and sure enough, it is a biological man undressing in the women's locker room.
Right here in Murfreesboro.
5 minutes away. Yes, sir.
Wow.
And it's crazy for me to think, we're sitting here having an event 2 days away, and this is what happens. I've never experienced this before, and it was just crazy. What I find ironic is they're calling white men like you, and even Hispanic men, they're calling you toxic. You're exerting your toxic masculinity. But what I like to call toxic masculinity is a biological man using his masculinity and forcing himself in a woman's locker room and undressing in front of girls. That's bigotry and toxic masculinity. So it was just sickening for me to sit there and watch this man undress in front of 10, 15 girls in this woman's locker room. So,
and this happened a little while ago.
Just 10 minutes ago.
Wow. Do you think any leaders are going to even talk about it or do anything?
I haven't heard. Very, very few leaders.
Who do you report that to? Who's the parks director?
I told a few of the volunteers or staff members there, and they were just horrified. They didn't know what to do. They're just teenagers, lifeguards. They didn't know what to do.
Did you report to police?
I haven't done anything. Just came straight over here. Are you going to make a police report? Yes, probably.
Maybe Scott Broden with Day News Journal's listening. Maybe Scott will do a news story on it. But if he does it,
Scott came to my rally, and
it'll be spun. The narrative will be that you're a bigot, you're a hater.
Yep.
Why are you picking on this guy? They'll spin the narrative. It's called, here's what it is, and I've learned this in a graduate communications class. It's called agenda setting theory.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fascinating that there's different types of agenda setting theories. It's pretty interesting, and it's called setting the narrative. Mm-hmm. They set this narrative, and they beat that narrative, and what they'll do, they'll paint me as a bigot. They'll paint me as a racist, and my assistant's African American.
Well, they do those things so that they can discredit all of the things that you're saying. They try to attack your character so that everything else you're saying doesn't matter.
Well, they played the race card on me so much. It's just like, bring it on. I'm used to it. It's funny, really, because I'm on 2 black calendars. Next Saturday I'll be speaking at an African American event. I just got invited to another African American church. Thank you, Brother Whedon, for his invite, Ebenezer Baptist Church. Sweet folks. A lot of history back there at that church. I was kidding them one day at the church. A lot of folks may know I'm talking about Ebenezer Church, about to pass the battlefield, and it dates back to maybe. I think it was on the battlefield property. Yeah, the church was on the battlefield property, and they moved it, I think, with logs. Moved it. And the late Dr. George Smith, who's the first African-American to be allowed physician privileges at Rutherford County Hospital, good friend of mine. Sadly, he passed a couple of years ago with cancer. Great guy. And they've got it looks like the old Little House on the Prairie, little church. Mm-hmm. And I was kidding him. I said, wouldn't it be neat if you could ring the bell up there? But you can't see the bell. And Dr. Smith said, that bell's been gone a long time. And one of the deacons with Brother Whedon said, no, that bell's up there. And they got up there, put a string up there, and rang it on Cemetery Day. It was really cool. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Most people know that their insurance can provide them with coverage for the many life's mishaps. But I can help you also unlock discounts, save money, and get benefits with Farmers Insurance policy perks. Whether we're discussing home or auto insurance, I am here to help you understand these great perks. Call me, Mark Lewis, at 615-625-7070 for a quote, and you can get a whole lot of something with Farmers policy perks.
We are Farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Not available in every state. Only available select Farmers branded policies underwritten by Farmers Truck or Fire Insurance Exchanges or affiliates.
Hey Rutherford County, it's Mark from the Safe House. And now the security riddle of the day. What do big box, fake safes, face masks, and Joe Biden have in common? They don't work, and they promise things that isn't true. So don't get a Joe Biden level of security. Come down to the Safe House and see what a real safe looks like. Unlike most of the other safe dealers in the area, we have safes in stock ready for delivery. And at the Safe House, gun safes are sales tax free. That's right, sales tax free. So drop by the store or go to NashvilleSafehouse.com. That's NashvilleSafehouse.com.
My wife and I enjoy going by Yard Sale Inc. We usually go to both locations, the one in Smyrna as well as the one in Murfreesboro. A lot of times on Saturday mornings we stop by, and their inventory changes weekly, so you never know what you're going to see, and it's mostly open box. The name fits it. It's exactly that. It's a yard sale. If you don't totally agree with the price, the staff is always friendly and nice and willing to work with you.
That's the Yard Sale store in Smyrna at 111 Enon Springs Road West, in Murfreesboro at 204 South Front Street, and online at bestdealintown.com.
Hi, this is Allie Dowenhauer with Isaiah 117 House. Isaiah 117 House provides physical and emotional support for children awaiting foster care placement here in Rutherford County. We are changing the way foster care begins, and those kiddos are brought to our house to hang out and wait for a foster family, and they're given everything they need. We support foster children, DCS, and foster families here in Rutherford County. Visit us at www.isaiah117house.com or visit our Facebook page, Isaiah 117 House, Rutherford County.
I've got a new sponsor of the program I want to mention here. If anyone needs any commercial residential painting, Juan is a new sponsor. You know, I wrote a book, Learn to Barter. Just Google Learn to Barter. You should see my book. But I've done a little bartering with this guy, and he already had the best price. Got talking to him, and I said, hey, man, why don't we do a little swapping out with some radio spots? He was like, all right. And just such a great guy. He said, man, I'll meet you over at the house in 20 minutes. And I've painted three businesses throughout the years and done a lot of it myself, but I don't have the energy like I did when I was a young cat like you. You know, back then I had a lot of energy, and but I'm getting my house ready for sale, and I just scared to paint the house, you know, because once you put that paint on there, man, it ain't come back off, and we looked at it, we negotiated a little deal, and he said, well, I'll be up next week. And I said, look, man, is there any way you can get over here tomorrow? Because we're going to put this house on the market. Action Homes is going to have it listed. My wife's cousin, Keith Smith, that used to work for me years ago, has got it listed. Well, we've got coming soon. Man, they knocked that house out in one day, in about 8 hours. And if y'all need, if you're a realtor or someone flipping a house, you thought about painting the house, go ahead and pull the trigger. Let me tell you what Juan done. He let me get the paint at his cost, which helped. If you need it done, call Juan at 615-840-3195. That is, am I reading that right? My eyesight's not what it used to be.
615-840-3195.
Yes, tell him Mike Sparks sent you. And I don't think you're going to find a better. In fact, if you find a better price, you call me and let me know, and I'll call him out on the air, because I don't think no one's going to beat this guy. He come in half price for everybody else. I mean, this dude showed up for work, wants to work, and that's the problem today. You can't get many people to work. But anyways, Juan with commercial and residential painting, interior, drywall, repair, backsplash, whatever you need, Juan can get it done. 840-3195. Hannah, you're 15 years old, right?
Just turned 16.
16, that's right. Why are you so passionate about this?
Well, I always say whatever you're passionate about is what you're going to spend your time doing. And for me, like all of us, we not only want to protect the freedoms of our current generations, but the ones to come. Yes. And so in doing so, we have to take a stand. We have to fight for these issues that are nasty, that are not always the most fun to talk about, but it's reality, and these are the things that we have to talk about. So, you know,
I opened up, I've got a day planner, and the front of it says, with God, all things are possible, Matthew 19:26. This was given to me by Pastor Brenda Bryant. She's African-American in Laverne. She just got back from Israel, and sadly her church burnt down about 7 years ago. Brenda's sweet. She always gives me a day planner every year, but I just happen to turn to that and read what that says.
Be courageous in that thing God is calling you to do.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is a God calling?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
It's very interesting, and I'll say this. I never thought in a million years that I would be speaking on stages, that I would be talking about the LGBTQ religion, that I'd be talking about that men shouldn't be in women's sports. But I would really say that I felt this calling on my life about 9 months ago when my sister was injured. When we were put in medical facilities, about 6 of them, and we were just seeing how the LGBTQ religion was infiltrating the medical facility, infiltrating the educational system. One of the chaplains at one of these facilities was a transgender. And that's when I felt the Lord calling me to do the rally, the Teens Against Gender Mutilation rally at the City Hall of Murfreesboro. Yeah. And then from there, the Lord just kept telling me, keep going. One of our founding fathers, John Adams, said, always stand on principle, even if you stand alone. So even, with the church pushback, with Christians pushing back against what we're doing and what we're standing for, the Lord just keeps saying, keep going. Always stand on principle. Even
what are you going to do if they call you a hater, a bigot?
Keep going.
You're mean.
Yeah.
You just keep going.
Keep
Yeah.
standing on principle. Yeah.
You know, I like the quote that Andrew Jackson gave. He said, "One man with courage makes a majority." Think about that. One man with courage makes a majority. The time my mother, who I grew up at St. Rose, you know, the Catholic Church, and my mom was like Pentecostal. She's like the only one in the Catholic Church with her hands raised up. I mean, and it was, you know, it was embarrassing for me as a young guy, but I always watched her tithe. I watched her prayers. I'd see the car break down, and my mom would lay hands on it and pray, and the car would start. So I watched miracles kind of manifest themselves as a young guy, and my mother always said times will be like they are. What they're going to do, they're going to come against you, and they're going to come against me. They're going to try to get me kicked off this station you watch.
Absolutely.
I was telling our Sunday school class this morning, I'm in there with some great people. They're all older, and we were talking about this craziness. I said, it's coming to the church. It's already at the nursing home where my sister is.
It's not coming to the church. It's already there.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, my sister was an awesome athlete, MVP, college scholarship. Sadly, she had a brain tumor and had a bad fall 5 years ago. She's on life support for 2 months, and I literally prayed, and I've never said this prayer, and I said, Lord, if you're not going to heal my sister, you need to take her. And I never said a prayer like that. Within 3 to 5 minutes, my wife got a phone call. My sister opened her eyes, started talking.
Wow.
Still nursed home. I don't see a picture of Jesus anywhere in there, but I'll tell you what I do see. I see this rainbow thing that says love on it, but I don't see a picture of Jesus. I mean, it saddens me where things are at, and it takes young people like you, which gives this generation hope, because most of these elected officials, they're not going to talk about this stuff. You have more courage than the majority elected officials in this entire county. Do you feel that? Do you believe that?
I do. I believe that.
Yes.
And you know what's interesting is we left England 200 years ago to get away from a state-sponsored religion. We came to
Yes.
America for religious liberty. And here we are 200 years later where we have the government, again, pushing a state-sponsored religion, the LGBTQ religion.
Yes, yes. Well, what's this? Is it a scripture where it says from the mouth of babes?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the rest of it.
I know which verse you're talking
Was it
about.
out of the
though.
mouth of babes and sucklings?
Yeah.
Hath thou ordained strength or something like that?
Well, that's better than I've got, you know. But that's what reminds me of here. You're just a young lady, and you're also a motorcycle rider, athlete.
Yes, I used to
Yeah.
race motocross and stock cars, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, your little brother does racing,
He does.
doesn't
He
he?
won last night, actually.
Oh, really?
Won his...
What kind of cars did he drive?
It's a Bandolero. It's like a...
And how old is he? Like 6 or something? How old
He's
is he?
10.
He's 10.
10.
Okay.
He's a small little guy. He's a small fellow.
And he races. How fast that car go?
He's gone like 90 miles an hour. In a road course, they usually go up to
How
85,
fast?
90 miles an hour, up to 90.
And he's 10?
10, yes.
Golly. Is that toxic masculinity, you think, you know?
I don't...
What are y'all doing here? Y'all need to try for NASCAR.
My youngest boy, Peyton, was always like, I'd have dirt bikes and stuff. He'd get on that dirt bike and one speed, you know what it was? Wide open.
All the way, yeah.
All the way. And that scared me because that's just the way he wanted to be, you know. Have you had a lot of pushback, any hate mail or, you know?
Oh, yeah. The other day, I walked into a coffee shop, and I think I told you this the other day. Walked in and was just getting some food, and apparently this transgender guy claiming to be a woman knew who I was and said, I know who you are. I know the organizations you're with. I know you're being brainwashed. You're just young. But if you don't leave these racist, horrible organizations you're with, something very, very bad is going to happen to you. So constantly getting messages saying that I need to leave the cult I'm in and that my activism is harmful, even though I'm just speaking the truth. So all the time, but you just got to
do
going.
you see this as mental illness?
Absolutely.
I think
absolutely.
It is.
I mean, this is a spiritual battle between good versus evil. It's a total mental illness epidemic that we're in. I mean, the fact that we're at a place in society where men are putting on a fetish of women and then half of society supporting it, our government in support of it. I mean, did you see the White House, Fetterman and Biden speaking? I don't even remember.
Makes me sick.
What it was,
where the flag was in the center is what my Sunday school
saw that
class
too.
talked about it.
Yeah. Complete abomination to what our men and women fought for.
I always think of the 58,200 young men that lost their life in Vietnam. You know the average age? Jeremy, take a guess the average age. No, Jackson, both y'all take a guess the average age of those 58,200 young men in Vietnam. You know how old they were?
19. At least 22.
They were 22 years old. When I see, and nothing against Jackson, you're 22, aren't you? 30. No, you're not. How old are you, 23?
80.
No, you're not. You're 22. So when I think of a 22-year-old, no disrespect, I just think of a 22 as a kid. I mean, don't you, Josh? I mean,
oh yeah,
because but think about what those guys went through out there in Vietnam. They couldn't come home, and then we let this country dissolve where it is today.
Yeah,
it's just but I appreciate your courage. I mean, what's it feel like to be so alone, though? I mean, as a young lady.
You just got to keep pushing and standing on the Word of God. I don't know how people don't do it when they don't have the Word of God at the center of their life. But I think what's hardest for me is when the church, when friends and family that I thought were for me are actually against me.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest. The messages, the people, the strangers that come up to me that are against me, that doesn't bother me. But when it's your own family and when it's the church that you have some pushback against, that's when it kind of can get a little bit difficult. But you just got to remember the mission, remember what God has put you on this earth for, and just keep going.
Well, I've seen y'all know what happened to John DeBerry. You've heard me talk about John DeBerry.
Yeah.
We were on a prayer conference call with John, and there's about 8 lawmakers. I think Senator Mark Pody, Janice Bowling, I think the Senator Rose, and some others were on there, and Janice asked John DeBerry, because that's when Democrats took John off the ballot. I mean, let me tell you how nefarious this is. This is nefarious, okay? John marched with Dr. King as a young man. His dad was in the NAACP. John DeBerry was at the mountaintop speech. He heard Dr. King give the mountaintop speech, and he'll say, because I've had him on the air several times, and he spoke at World Outreach, spoke at Pettis Reed, had him in over here at I think it's First Baptist Church over here on Main Street. Beautiful.
Church of Christ on East Main.
Oh, Church Christ. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Church of Christ. Yeah, because they don't clap or say amen. I was a little surprised. But, all due respect to Pettis if he listened. But a beautiful church, man. Just really nice. I got to sit through the revival about 2 or 3 days with Pettis. And I remember John telling me, if you watch that speech of Dr. King when he's saying, I've been to the mountaintop, I may not get there with you. It's almost like he knows he is not going to make it, because he had already had the death threats. And then they took John off the ballot, took him off the ballot where you could not even, he couldn't run. And I think that's pretty nefarious. Well, I had the governor in shortly after that, and I brought up the Constitution, brought up free and fair elections, and we need to care about John. And I had one of my Kurdish friends there, Z was there. And Z's family had nowhere really to go. They left northern Iraq, and the Kurdish area, and a lot of the family was killed. And during Saddam Hussein, where he was flying the crop dusters, and killing some of the Kurdish people. And I forgot how many were lost, maybe 30,000. And I brought up, and I used profanity at the event. I know it sounds odd to use profanity. I just use a D word, I just said, I like this governor because he gives a blank. And I say, he cares about the fatherless. He cares about those addicted to drugs. He cares about the brokenness. Cares about these problems. Who does that but someone that gives a D-A-M-N? And I brought up John DeBerry. I looked over to the governor. And guess what the governor was doing?
Crying.
He was crying. He had a mask on. And because it was right after my event, our annual chili cook-off at the Smyrna Train Depot was the first event he had been to because he was quarantined. And I heard John, when Janice said, John, how you doing? Right after he got taken off the ballot. Remember, he served 26 years in Memphis, and John's voice got crackled. He was like, well, I'm doing okay, and his wife died about 5 years ago. And I called John back about an hour later, and I always liked something Dr. King said, where he was arrested for, my understanding, not getting a parade permit in Birmingham. And I like this quote. And he says, it's not the words of your enemies that hurt the most, but the silence of your friends. Mm-hmm. And he was getting criticized by other pastors if you go study King, and I'd encourage you to do that. But here's where God had a plan. And haters listening, if there's any haters out there, listen to this. Here's where God had a plan. It reminds me of Genesis 50, verse 20. And here's what happened to John. The governor hired him. So what they meant for evil, God meant for good. The governor takes him in, hires him as an advisor because he sees the wisdom and discernment in John DeBerry, the same wisdom and discernment that Dr. King had that was bestowed upon John DeBerry. John is the first African-American to be on the same floor at the state capitol as the governor in history.
Wow.
You think Phil Williams is going to do a story on that? You think Scott Brown's going to do a story on that?
I don't think so.
And I like Scott. If
Yeah.
Scott's listening, no disrespect, Scott, I like Scott. I mean, Scott probably wants to do a story, but his hands are tied because Ganette's not going to tell that story. Why is that? Why is that?
It's a narrative.
It's a narrative. What is the agenda behind that narrative? There's an agenda, and that agenda is to cause division. My assistant's African American, sharp young man, thinks for himself, and I see such brokenness. There's no, like the fathers, there's no lobbyist in Nashville. All these lobbyists, there's a book of lobbyists, like 68 pages, 5 per page. I've never had anybody come to the office, talk about our prison budgets, it's doubled, talk about the violence in the inner city, talk about the fathers, the importance of mentors. Why is that?
Well, I think that's why it's so important that this event that we're having Tuesday is happening, with Latinos for Tennessee. We're the largest Hispanic conservative group in the state of Tennessee. And, Francis and I, with
your wife, tell us who your wife is.
So my wife is Frances Rosales. She serves on the school board of Rutherford County, Zone 7, Blackman area. We just had an amazing community event this past Saturday. With
the judge.
Two Saturdays ago, we had an amazing community event where we served about 150 families. It was just incredible. But then this past Saturday, we had juvenile court judge Travis Lampley with us, and he presented, just his presentation on juvenile court. And one thing that he said that I really enjoyed was that juvenile court is not a punishment, but it's rehabilitation. And that's what a lot of our young people need. They need rehabilitation. They just don't need the book thrown at them and then sent to juvie. But, standing up for what we believe, which is not a political issue. It's not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It's not. It's just a moral issue. It's a right and it's a wrong issue. And we meet Latinos for Tennessee. We have a chapter here in Rutherford County. We meet one Saturday every month. And I was like, you know what? I would love to have Riley Gaines come and talk to our small little group. And I was like, God, if there's any way, like, direct me. And then I was talking with Hannah over the phone. Hannah's like, oh, I'm actually good friends with Riley. And I'm like, oh, sweet. Cool. Like,
tell us who Riley, a lot of folks may not know who Riley Gaines is.
I'm going to let Hannah knows a little bit better.
Yeah, so she's a 12-time NCAA champion. She was swimming, and this is her senior year of swimming for the University of Kentucky. And she was forced to compete against William Thomas, or Leah Thomas. That's what he's known for, transgender swimmer. And they ended up tying by the second. They tied. She gets out of the water. They said, good job, you and Leah tied, but we're going to give the trophy to Leah for picture purposes. She's like, I've been training my entire life for a photo op. Yeah. For a photo op so that a transgender, a man posing to be a woman, can feel better about himself. Yeah. And so they gave the trophy to Thomas, and she went home, and she began the fight. She realized that if nobody was going to speak up, who was going to speak up? She waited and waited. Who's going to speak up for us as girls, having to watch a biological man undress in our locker rooms, strip us of our titles and our scholarships? Who's going to speak up? So she was really the first female athlete to really take a stand on this issue. And then we see Paula Scanlon, I think that's her last name, stand up. She was a teammate of Mr. Thomas in Pennsylvania, yeah. And so her voice is very powerful. So that's kind of her story. And now she's just speaking all across America and being a voice really for the whole world.
Mm-hmm. Well, how big a fella, is this Lee Thomas guy?
He is a 6'1".
6'1". Wow. That's mental illness. Yeah, that's insanity. But today, the media is all in cahoots with all this stuff. 90% of the media is controlled by about 5 huge corporations. They've all got this, and we need to support local media, support the Merciful Post, support Bracken Mayo, the Merciful Pulse, support local journalism so they can get stories out and not be fed this narrative. Just pick up Gannett. All front page is going to be either something about LGBT stuff, and it's nothing about. There's not going to be anything about church in there. Nothing about Jesus in there. I mean, it's going to be this narrative, and I mean, it's just, I don't know. It really worries me for the future of my new grandbaby that my son, his wife just had back in December.
You were just talking about how the Democratic Party wants division, and the media is pushing this division, this divide between blacks and whites.
They're professionals at it too.
They want us to hate one another. They want blacks and whites to go against each other so that they can take control, because divided we fall. I mean, that's
divide and conquer.
Yeah.
So this Tuesday, getting to the event this Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the Fountains at Gateway, Riley Gaines is going to be there speaking. My wife and I, for our anniversary, we actually went to the Bold Patriot and saw Riley speak at the Davison Young Republicans event and had a really good time. But Leo, if you haven't purchased your tickets, which the tickets are only $15, tickets are going fast, and we are already probably pushing 200 people that are going to be attending. You need to get your tickets, because the tickets are not going to be sold at the door. You will be turned away because we have light refreshments, and those refreshments are going to be for around 200 or a little bit over 200. And don't mean to be mean or rude, but if you didn't register, then too late. It's going to be like God closing the ark door. And it's not going to open. But this is an event that you're not going to want to miss. And it was supposed to be a small event where just Leah, I keep saying, Riley talking about Leah, and then her experience to about 13 of us conservative Hispanics that meet once a month. And then it just spread like wildfire. One person heard about it, the next person heard about it, and then all of a sudden it was like, why are we doing this? Let's get Riley Gaines. Let's blow it up. And so that's what's happening. So it's going to be at the Fountains this Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. We're going to probably end around 7:30. We'll have a question and answer session. If you can go to register, you can go to social. You can go on social media. You could go Hannah Faulkner's page. You could go to my page, Josh Rosales, on Facebook, on Instagram, and then you'll see the link, because we're just posting and posting and posting. So you can see the link, sign up for it via Eventbrite, and get your tickets. But tickets are going fast, and the event's going to be Tuesday evening. We're going to have an amazing time. Young Women for America with Hannah Faulkner, Latinos for Tennessee, Rutherford County Young Republicans, Americans for Prosperity with Alex. We have state senators, state reps. It's just going to be a great time. You're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah. Can they call you for a ticket?
Yeah, you can give me a call. My number is area code 209-323-8439. That's 209-323-8439. I'll give you the instructions on how to go on, and actually I'll text you the link.
And they can also find, like you said, both y'all on Facebook.
Yeah, and Instagram. My Instagram is Hannah Faulkner 1776.
Okay, I think we've got a caller. Caller, go ahead. Hey.
And Marty here.
How's things going? I saw you've got Marty hosted you tonight. Alice Riley running for our next Nashville mayor. Used to work for ECD and used to work with Lamar Alexander's campaign years ago. I know he hosted you tonight, and I had to leave early. So things going good for y'all?
Yep, things are going good here. Marty's got a full porch, and we got folks signing up to help volunteer and knock on doors and help make sure that the center of our state is well managed. So
well, how long, Alice? How long are you going to be over at Marty's place tonight?
Oh, I think we'll be here until a little after 6 or so. Yeah.
6?
Yeah.
Okay. And the address, I've got the address here. If folks listen, Alice Raleigh's over at Marty Luffman's place, ranch tonight off Old Hickory Boulevard. The address is 13885 Old Hickory Boulevard, right there at that Laverne, what I call the Laverne X, Old Hickory Boulevard. So you'll be there till 6 tonight if anybody wants to come by, and Marty, you'll be there hanging out. People, can they still come by at 7?
Yeah, Yeah, that's fine. We got plenty of pizza, and we've got wings and everything, and we'll be here on the porch for at least another hour. So come on down.
And how can folks find out about your campaign for mayor?
Yep, you can go to AliceRowley.com and